Yeah, their present time is like our present time, and they have to deliberately, they have to type in the coordinates and so, and they have to jump into the future. But normally they don't do this. They live their life, and they don't know what will happen to them. They only did this for Billy, as instruction to jump into to certain events in the future, to show him so he would be prepared. But this is not something they do. But perhaps if they have some research on another planet, not involving human beings, and so they can, perhaps as part of their exploring, but they rarely use going into the future, but they use travel into the past for research.
To continue with this question, we know this event is coming, San Francisco earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps this is the only case that Plejarens told us before the event happening.
Mm-hmm.
And why they only tell this San Francisco earthquake case, but not others?
There is another instance, but this Billy wanted to see the city, how it looks after the disaster. Mm-hmm. That's upon Billy's request. It was not their request to show him. He wanted, but a couple of years ago, Pta said, after the tsunami in Japan, I think, that in Portland, the west coast, there will be a huge tsunami and earthquake over 9 on the Richter scale. So now, this is so people in Portland could move now. This is an information. But if they would tell everybody around the ring of fire around the Pacific, every city, you will. It's clear. It's obvious that catastrophes will happen around the Pacific. In Japan, there will be also a huge earthquake. Or there's constantly earthquakes, but he especially named this huge under the sea, the coast of Portland, where a huge tsunami will happen. This is not a prophecy. This is a prediction. This will happen, and not too distant in the future. They don't give this information, of course, but I just read today in another library an article in the New Yorker from July, from this many pages about this threatening huge earthquake that can happen anytime now. There, for 700-800 miles up from up to Washington and up to Alaska there.
Because recently California has been through this, I think, starting to have a water line issue, right? And it's becoming worse and worse. Perhaps something related to this forming this.
One thing will lead to another in a chain of events that eventually will create that imbalance or that tipping point, and then which.
Yeah, they even foretold other events also. Where I live in the slope where there is a mountain region. And there will sometime in the far future there will be a volcano. There is no hint now that there will be a volcano, but this will be in 10,000s of years then to come. So I'm not have no problems because. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I had a question. Well, it's just to further the conversation, which is you're saying that Billy is writing about upcoming weather changes. You were mentioning that.
Yeah, he has written an article that will soon appear. I don't know, I'm now here, I could not correct to Zeitzeichen, that's a new periodical. Perhaps there is some information in there. And he's writing about the more and more heavier environmental impacts of the climate change. And climate change, as everybody should know or knows, is based on human beings and the surplus of human beings, the overpopulation. And he said that in many countries, waters drought will become more and more severe, and that in Europe, and perhaps also here in Canada, in the northern parts, the climate will becoming warmer, so that now in the near future you can grow crops that are now growing in Italy or more in southern countries, but there will be plenty of water there, but of course the storms will also increase in intensity then, but there is all over the world the weather catastrophes will getting more and more severe. Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Will there be a nuclear World War III? Will the Pleiadians interfere to prevent that?
Pleiadians will never interfere, and it's open. It depends on the intellect and rationality of some world leaders, or the lack of it. Depends on the human beings. Of course, there will be no rescue. It's we are responsible for ourselves. We are responsible for who we vote, elect into the offices, and it's the human beings. Mm-hmm.
Will human beings on Earth effectively address overpopulation at some point in the future?
Yeah, some point in the future they have to, but the longer it grows like this, 100 million more people a year, actually that's the rate. So the harder it gets, because the environment is also dwindling. It's getting less and less habitable, and so it gets more and more difficult to, the greater the number, the more difficult it is to bring the reverse effect.
Unless a catastrophic event by virtue of the dwindling resource and the overpopulation.
Yeah.
Natural disaster. Yeah.
Natural disasters, but I think then some countries are closing their borders, are trying. There is war for water, and or perhaps then new diseases develop. This is one of the prophecies, is that 2/3 of the human population is dying on a newly developing mutilating epidemic. That's also possible. When perhaps the planet fights back, that's nature, cause and effect. And perhaps then also there will be some laws, terrestrial laws, that a strict control, like in some films. You can see in some films today where it's forbidden for people to have a child or children only with some distinct requirements, and so that it also a prophecy that there is the death penalty if you transgress against this law of restriction.
Where is that prophecy found? Where is that prophecy? Where that is located?
I don't cannot tell you. There is that in a sentence it reads that even the death penalty will be applied.
Okay.
So if there are, as a part of these measurements.
It might be there's something similar where they say, like, even if you steal a piece of bread or
Yeah.
with it with your life,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Very strict, and then a regime and no freedom anymore, everything military, and it's not a good prospect.
But that the population reduction may already be in progress from Fukushima, because the predictions have been that within 5 years every second person will have cancer.
Oh no, I don't think so, but cancer is mostly based on, of course, on environmental pollution, food poisoning, all kinds of chemical substances, wrong thinking, and all kinds of factors are playing a role, and the resistance of the body and constitution and Vererbung, inheritance, genetic, and all kinds of. But I don't think.
But we have quite a bit of a radioactive fallout since 2011.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the Pacific, it's obvious, and in the air in our lakes, it can be measured.
Yeah, of course, it will contribute to more cancer, but not everyone dies if he has a diagnosis of cancer, dies instantly.
Yeah.
So, so this will be a process, one factor among many others, so that cancer is spreading more and more. Mm-hmm.